Hello, I'm David Broadhead and welcome to the business programme here on Kirklees Local TV. Today's guest is Simon Taylor at Kirklees Council, who have asked along today to explain the background to and detail of the recently published Huddersfield Town Centre Blueprint, possibly the biggest and boldest transformation plan for Huddersfield in living memory. Simon, thank you for joining us, taking time to join us today in what must be an incredibly busy but exciting time for you and the other members of staff involved in this particular project.
Yes, it is probably the most exciting time I've had at Kirklees for many years.
Excellent, yeah. And can I start by asking you a fairly obvious question to anyone familiar with town centres and Huddersfield in particular? Why do we need a blueprint and what does it intend to achieve?
I think probably have to look back in time, and town centres sort of were left to the private sector and the market forces to sort out. I certainly remember in my time where there was retail wars between individual supermarket chains and the retailing was very, very dominant. I think we've moved into a new era now where retailing is on the decline, certainly the type of retailing that we recognise as traditional. So we're getting lots and lots of vacant units. Town centres are changing all the time. So we need a long-term vision for the town to make it change for the better. So we've produced the new blueprint, which sets out some of those key changes. And it's also a real opportunity for us to sell the town to investors, because obviously we're going to have to get some inward investment into the town. And we need to give those investors certainty that we have a proper vision and we know what we want to achieve in the longer term.
Excellent, yeah. Now, building on that, is there any data or specific figures that sort of demonstrate that fall in footfall, the turnover, the occupancy rates, etc., that substantiate that decline? But also, is there anything to demonstrate growth, like the food and drink type events that we've had recently, the music and literature festivals, plus general recreation and nightlife and things like that?
Yeah, I think in the sort of retailing world, what you've been seeing in town centres is a general decline in footfall. I think about 10% nationally. So that's quite significant. In Huddersfield, we are seeing something like 16% drop in footfall across the piece, and certainly on days like Saturdays, that's probably reduced by about 24% since 2011. So that's quite significant and certainly higher than the national average. I don't think we're unique in all of that. We are sort of a town in the north that's probably suffering economically as much as sort of some of our partner towns, but certainly it is something that we need to reverse, and some of that will be to do with the decline in retailing generally. Vacancy rates as well, they're always an area of concern, and we measure that. In the town centre as a whole, our average retail vacancy rate is around 17%.
Okay.
It's probably not as high as everybody expects, but it's still of some concern. And I think also what we have to put into context is that certain areas of the town, like the Piazza Centre, probably as high as 45%. So that's really significant.
And that's really visible as well.
It is very
It really
visible.
sets a tone for the whole area. Now, the plan or the blueprint covers 6 town centre areas, particularly the centrepiece appearing to be the creation of a new cultural heart. What is that exactly, and how will it impact on the adjoining buildings?
Well, I think that is the showcase piece in the whole master plan. It's an area that is occupied by some interesting set of buildings, really. You've got the old the library, which is listed, and it's not to everybody's taste, but it is a landmark building for the town. And Queensgate Market as well, another landmark building for the town in terms of its architecture and the sort of,
and again, not to everybody's taste.
Not to everybody's taste, but over time, I think people are growing to like it. And adjacent to that are some sort of 1960s, early 70s type buildings. And our aim really was to consolidate our cultural activities in that area. So new library facilities, a new art gallery, museum facilities, and also create what we're terming a sound space, which is a venue where we can put on performing arts, music, and also share that space with up and coming talent, so studio space, that type of thing, and also a bit of education in there as well. We need to work out how that's going to work across all of those buildings, but inevitably we can't use all of those old buildings for something in that sort of sector. So we are looking at some clearance, and most of that will come from clearing out the piazza buildings to create a new public space, a new park. So you put all of those facilities, which will be the key draw to that part of town, in a really, really smart setting, so people want to stay there, food and drink offer alongside that, and also helping us to connect up the town to the university, because that's one of the key sort of barriers to attracting some of those students from the campus into the town. It's that sort of, well, it's that Berlin Wall, it's been described to me, and certainly the ring road doesn't help, so we want to downgrade that a little bit as well. And it's trying to get everything to blend into one key space with a sort of theme of culture, art and music at its very, very core. And linking back, of course, to Lawrence Batley Theatre, which was just over Queen Street, and also connecting not too far away to the Kingsgate Centre, which hopefully will have a new cinema in it as well.
Yes, it will, won't it? Now, transport and commuting in particular are essential ingredients of the Huddersfield economy. What plans are there for enhancing the existing bus and train stations?
Well, we've got 2 or 3 key plans for the transport hubs. The rail station is probably one of the more aspirational projects, because we are very much dependent on Network Rail and the impending Transpennine route upgrade project, which will bring opportunities at Huddersfield Railway Station to connect the station warehouse, which is on the other side of platform 8, through the station and into St George's Square, hopefully, and that opens up that area for regeneration opportunities. We also want to connect up the bus station and the rail station properly. You've got a bit of a odd connection up a side street, then over a difficult junction.
Absolutely.
Just got some funding to improve that through a government initiative called Transforming Cities. So we're hopeful that that project can be delivered quite early. And then the final part of that jigsaw is to upgrade the bus station. The bus station has about 33,000 passengers per day going through it. So we want that to be a showcase gateway for Huddersfield Town Centre. So we're upgrading the public realm around that area, the stuff in front of the Plumber's Arms, that sort of sector, creating a more modern appearance to the facade of the bus station, and hopefully, and probably importantly, improving the car parking offer that sits above the bus station.
Now that's just what I was going to ask as a sort of a next question about sort of additional car parking opportunities in the town centre, and also for additional housing as well.
Car parking is really important, and if you talk to many businesses across the town, they have lots of ideas of what we should be doing with car parking. I think one of the key things for us is to understand how much parking we need in the town centre. So separate to the blueprint, but connected to it, is a car parking study, which we're conducting right now, and we're doing a lot of counting of spaces, looking at the turnover of the spaces themselves across the town, and we're going to work out whether we've got the right quantity. Are we using the right technology? Probably not. We need to improve that, and we'll be looking at pricing as well within that sort of framework, and at opportunities where we can increase the parking, in particular for sort of business purposes.
Yeah, and so the duration of parking as well, availability is a critical issue. I know that from a business perspective, being based here in Huddersfield. In terms of retail, the areas identified for improvement, obviously Kingsgate and the New Street areas, and particularly New Street. What's planned for that?
I'll just start with Kingsgate is an interesting one because we've already had the announcement at the launch that the lights are going to progress with the cinema, and that's really good news for the Kingsgate Centre because it gives an attraction to the remaining retail offer in that centre. But it also helps with from a council perspective in creating an evening and nighttime economy that's not drink based. It's more family based, and that's what we want to achieve. But importantly for New Street, we see that as the sort of traditional high street offer. So we do want to make sure that those units along there are reused. You've got the new post office relocated into that in a slightly different format. It's a cafe based offer, which is the modern post office. I know that we're losing.
Cynics might say that whilst you're queuing, you can have a coffee as well, but
probably have to
won't
queue.
go that.
Yeah, that's right. But importantly for that area, we think that the public realm, again, which is really important for town centres, is looking a bit tired, a bit 1980s in style. We want to upgrade that, create places where people can sit out, enjoy the coffee and cafe culture there, but also provide permanent infrastructure for pop-up markets in that area. We already have international markets there, which are very successful. I think some of the promoters would quote something like 25,000 visitors to that market in Huddersfield over a 4-day period, which is quite an influx of people into the town centre. So we're quite keen to keep those going, but the infrastructure is not great. Electricity, permanent sort of pop-up stall facilities, they all need to be provided, and we can create a much better space there and make things look more attractive and create a decent old high street type offer along New Street.
So the final areas, the St Peter's Gardens and Northumberland Street area, how's that going to enhance the town centre, given the closure now of the main post office, and is that the opportunity for housing maybe?
It is. You mentioned housing earlier, and I think the post office sorting office is one of the few opportunities in town where we've identified a site that can be cleared and you can start again from scratch. The frontage part of the post office is listed, so we're really,
that must be listed,
really keen to keep that in place, and we need to treat that pretty sensitively. But the St Peter's area is a golden opportunity to really sort of enhance that sort of independent business culture that is growing up around there. There's some nice cafes, some decent bars, restaurant culture there that all needs to be supported. And sort of given an opportunity to thrive.
So let's think about costs now. I've seen figures quoted of about 250 million over the next 10 years. Where's the money going to be coming from for all this, and when can we expect to see work commence and, I suppose more importantly, finish, if ever?
I think in terms of starting, some of the early sort of public realm works will start soonish. We are going out to consultation on a scheme at Church Street, and that should go out to the public either next week or the week after. I think it's the 17th that we're launching that. So that's a refurb of Church Street itself. That'll be shortly followed by a project on Queensgate, and then some other public realm work across the town. So you're going to start seeing that trickle through in the next sort of 6 to 9 months. Prior to that, we've had a bit of a programme of improving some of the highways. You've seen King Street upgraded already from what it was to a brand new paviours on that important street down to the Kingsgate Centre. In terms of the larger projects, some of them do take a long time to deliver. Certainly we're aiming to look at a new sound venue in time for 2023, which will look at how we use that Queensgate market as a new venue. That's part of our aspiration. In terms of the overall funding package, I think we've already secured some funding. The council have allocated around £45 million of its own capital into the town centre. We have a loan facility of about £25 million as well that's we are offering out to the right types of developments. So we're looking at Kingsgate is part of that. A student accommodation block at the end of New Street is also part of that sort of loan for that funding programme. But importantly, we are making bids to central government. We've currently got about £60 million worth of bids in with government. That's the Future High Street Funds, which is worth about £25 million, and something that's called Transforming Cities Fund, which we've got a bid in for around about £35 to £40 million at the moment. So there is a bit of a gap, and we acknowledge that we need an inward investment strategy wrapped around this, and some of it will have to come from the private sector. But we are ahead of the game. We are already securing some of those funds, and I'm pretty hopeful that we can keep that going over the next few years. I think some of the projects are really, really aspirational, and I think people do need to be a bit patient with us. But over the next 10 years, I think most of the things that we've set out in that blueprint, I'm pretty confident we can deliver.
Excellent. Talking finally about aspirational programmes and schemes, etc. The last question's about the proposed HD1 development down by the John Smith Stadium there. How does that link in with the town centre plan, and particularly sort of given that we've got two huge development spaces, the old gasworks site and the old sports centre site, that are just empty and open brownfield sites at the moment?
Well, HD1 is still very much alive. I think should it go ahead, it will give a very sort of complementary leisure offer to the whole of Huddersfield Town Centre. You mentioned the Southgate site. That's actually owned by the council, and we're actively marketing that, and we're quite hopeful that we will get a development partner for that within the next 12 months or so. So we are very optimistic that some of those key sites can actually come forward within the same time frame as the blueprint itself. And actually the Southgate site is a classic one, really, because it's a prime opportunity to connect back into the town with a good employment offer.
Absolutely, yes, exactly. And okay, finally, from personal interest, really, and a careers advice perspective, would you mind telling us a little about yourself and your career to date, and what background and education anyone needs to be involved in creating and executing exciting plans like these?
Okay. Well, my background is in a slightly dull field. I'm a town planner. I am also a transport planner, so I come back from that planning and transportation world. My background is in regeneration and development, so I've worked in the South East quite a bit, but I've worked in other authorities across West Yorkshire, but my home is in Kirklees. I live here, and I've worked at Kirklees for about 10 years now, so doing various jobs, head of planning for my sins. In terms of education, and I was thinking about this quite a lot, things have changed quite a bit in terms of regeneration, particularly around town centres. That traditional planning and construction is really important, but we need creative people now to make a real difference, because towns like Huddersfield, they need to stand out. And we've got a lot of creative people that could put Huddersfield on the map again for all the right reasons. So if you come from a sort of art or culture or a landscaping type background, we need those skills as well, because I think they're the things that will make us sort of shine in the future.
And of course, Jonathan Ives just left Apple, so it must be a little bit of spare time on his hands.
All that creative stuff, yes, we'll definitely grab that.
You'd certainly take some of his advice.
Yes, I would.
Yeah,
yes.
Excellent. Okay, Simon, once again for sharing that exciting and inspirational plan and the details of it with us. And I look forward to seeing you next time here on the business programme on KLTV. Goodbye.